Hi, everyone. Welcome to Soulprint. Thank you very, very much for being here. First and foremost, thank you so much for all of the healing energy, the Reiki, the good thoughts, the prayers, all of it that has been sent my way recently. My goodness, I must be the neediest psychic in town. My finger's doing really well. The Band-Aids are off. Um, it's my rib that I cracked that got hurt. And so as long as I don't breathe, laugh, sneeze, or yawn, I'm good. The bump on the side of my hip where I hit the cement is fine. It's a very pretty purple yellow color. All right. This is going to be really, really short and sweet because I actually don't want to drain what energy I do have. And so you know, I will be taking the rest of this week off. There will be no Pendulum Friday on Friday. I'm sorry. But it is Good Friday. I'm thinking it's Easter weekend. People have other things that are going on. So any questions from the video today, and it's going to be the only one that gets released this week, except of course for Saturdays, pick your crystal readings, will all be compiled and put onto next week's Pendulum Friday. So don't hesitate to add your questions. Just understand that we're going to deal with them in a week. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about really quickly is, and this is actually thanks to the amazing Joyce. She sent me an article, and I'm going to actually put the link on this in that information box below. It's from the Walla Walla Democrats.com, other voices / Carrie's checkmate. Okay. But what it was talking about was it was talking about the bond market and how Trump pulled right back, and it was explaining why he pulled right back. And so this was really, really super interesting, right? This was as a reaction to the tariffs. But bonds, the way I can understand it now, um, are when other countries or people buy up the U.S. debt, okay, and the U.S. Says, okay, for doing that, I'm going to pay you this interest rate. It's sort of not unlike when you take out a mortgage, right? The bank says, I will buy your debt, the mortgage, and you are going to pay me X number of percentage points in interest. That's sort of the basic equivalent. But this is what was going on. When it all started, um, Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, was very quietly increasing Canada's holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds. There are apparently something like over $350 billion worth of by early 2025 as part of listen to this, 8.35 trillion foreign countries that hold U.S. debt. So just give your head a shake for a second, right? He is going after the very people who hold his debt, the country's debt. So one of the things that Carney did was not only was he buying, bonds on behalf of Canada, but he took it out to Europe and he talked to those people out there. And then the idea was not to flood the market with bonds because that would have been a disaster everywhere. But what it did do was the idea was to just start slowly, drip, 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 selling off the bonds that had all been purchased by these foreign countries as a response to the tariffs. So these are the people that hold that 8.3 or $8.5 trillion in debt. Japan, 1 trillion. Canada, 350 billion. EU nations, 400 and I really should have my glasses on. 100.5 trillion combined. So when they just started to selling those bonds, um, the markets went crazy. What happens when that happens is, this is the breakdown. Prices drop. You have more supply than demand. That pushes the bond prices down. Interest rates spike when bond prices when bond prices fall, yields interest rates to attract buyers. Okay, so how does that hurt the US, and what made him pull back? Borrowing gets really expensive, the debt snowballs, the dollar weakens, and of course, that ultimately will cause a depression because government spending dries up because they don't have it to spend. Businesses fail because the increased interest rates then start to impact businesses. And of course, they also are impacting the everyday person who has a mortgage that comes up for renewal, or credit card companies if they start to spike their rate. So that's just interesting. So for everybody who was confused, and I was about that, trying to figure out why the heck, when the bond market started to move, is that when he backed down? And he has backed down historically. Does that mean allied countries are going to forgive him? They're not. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you something different, but they're not. He has cooked his goose. So what you have was all of these allies sort of going, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump, we hold your debt. Don't piss us off anymore. And that's basically what happened. So good on Mark Carney. So far here in Canada, the Liberals have somewhere between a 5 to 8 point lead against the Trump-loving Conservatives. So as of right now, that's really, really good news. The election here is on the 28th of April. Okay, so with all of this going on, I'm like, I'm talking to spirit, and I'm going like, what the hell is going on, right? You have these massive, massive rallies, whether they are the Bernie Sanders OAC, whether they are the ones in front of Tesla, or people's, government buildings, but there are these massive rallies going on everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. But then you have a whole list of big name law firms in the United States who have capitulated and basically promised Trump about $1 billion in free legal services combined because he threatened them. He threatened to get mean, and they backed down. Harvard University is pushing back because they're threatened to cut funding if they don't meet certain criteria. And the criteria is absolutely ridiculous. It's like basically get rid of everybody who isn't male and white. Don't teach anything that we don't want taught. Like ridiculous. They're pushing back, but there have been other universities who have not sort of pushed back as strongly, or are waffling, and they're trying to figure out what to do and how to handle this. So my question is this: how is it that you have average, everyday people, many of them older, many of them living on fixed incomes, many of them dependent on social insurance and Medicaid and Medicare, et cetera, et cetera? You have people whose retirement funds are being negatively impacted by what is going on in the stock market. But yet you have people that you would perceive as more affluent and more powerful who are capitulating all over the place. They're dropping like flies. And so I'm like, what the heck? What is the story here? What's going on here? And it was really interesting, the answer I got. Those of you who are of an age will know the song, Me and Bobby McGee, originally written by Chris Christopherson, made mostly famous by Janis Joplin. In that song, and this was what they were playing in my head, is the phrase, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And so in order to put this in perspective, and listen, don't mistake that to say that those people who are out there protesting have nothing left to lose. But what they are doing is they're holding on tight to what they have, as opposed to very affluent people, very powerful people who get wigged at the thought of losing any power, any assets, any money. That's why you're starting to see the very people that supported him, the billionaires, who are starting now to turn against him and say, what the hell, you are destroying our companies. You know, they thought they were going to end up being the new Russian oligarchs in the United States, but what they're discovering is that he doesn't care about them either. Okay, he really believes he can do this single-handedly on his own. Now, you have the courts, including as of, what day is it today? Tuesday. As of Monday, blatantly disregarding a court order it went from the Supreme Court, a unanimous decision that the appellate court or the court below, Trump had to follow their ruling, to which the White House responded, no, we don't, and we're not gonna. And you want us to bring that gentleman back from El Salvador? Well, you know what? El Salvador says they're not going to release him. And so, yeah, we're good. So what you've got now is you've got more and more of this sort of pushback that's going on. He is running into walls and blocks everywhere he goes. Oh, and by the way, he also had his physical, and he's the healthiest specimen on the planet, and his cognitive skills are incomparable to anybody else. They're amazing. So what's going on? What's going on with him? How is he reacting and responding to this? Because that, of course, impacts all kinds of stuff. So he's getting pushback from other world leaders. He's getting pushback from the courts. He's getting pushback from some universities. And he's getting pushback from Republicans who are facing these massive protests everywhere they turn. And they're being upended, frankly, by Democrats who are stepping in and saying, okay, well, we're gonna do these town halls because there's information that people need to know as American citizens. How's he doing? Spirit? What's the story on good old EJ? Okay, so high blood pressure is an issue. He is in sort of almost a perpetual rage. He's experienced this before when court cases were not going well for him, and there was this sort of rage energy. That's exactly where he's at right now. He's just screaming at everything and everybody. And the more he gets pushed, the more outrageous things come out of his mouth. The problem is we've now learned that the more outrageous it is, it does not mean that it is unlikely. In fact, if anything, it means he's going to do whatever he can to make it likely. So when he was having that meeting at the White House with the El Salvador dictator, and what is the story with the Oval Office and all that tacky gold everywhere? Like, oh my God. It's just hideous looking. I'm sorry. I digress. One of the things he said was, yeah, there's going to come a time we're looking at starting to deport homegrowns to El Salvador. That means American citizens. Think about that. And it's nice to see that people aren't just schlepping it off and saying, oh, he's just talking. Because when he talks, he means it. And he means it at this point because of the fear and the stress he's getting. He is getting angry at everybody because people have stopped praising him. People have become very vocal about their criticism. Now, as long as Elon Musk is still in the mix, a lot of those protests, the anger there is being directed at him. And so for 45, that's okay, right? Because it's not coming in his face, but it will. And it is going to continue to build These protests are not going to abate. They are going to get bigger and bigger, and the pressure on Republicans, is ramping up. And it's not going to dissipate, because one of the things that we know, we just forget it, is that the power of the people is so much more powerful than powerful people. But there is almost an instinctive obeyance. And where you're at now is where people are saying, you know what, no, I don't think we're going to obey anymore. So what you're dealing with is somebody who is incredibly angry. Stephen Miller is literally like chirping in his ear about how he doesn't have to listen to anybody or anything. And who the hell does the Supreme Court think they are? And he's absorbing it, right? And apparently it was a Boris Epstein guy who negotiated with all of these law firms for all of this free legal service. So are things going to settle down? Yes. Are they going to settle down soon? Maybe. But things are going to slowly start. You're going to start to feel, I almost want to say like a withdrawal or a pullback from the White House, that he's going to become a quieter. The louder the protests get and the bigger they get, the quieter he's going to become, which is unusual, right? Because normally I would be saying he would be, doubling down and tripling down and punching back twice as hard. But this is taking him to a place in his ego where he's very fragile, where what's that called? Narcissistic collapse, right? Where the reality is no longer aligning in any way with the fantasy that he's living with. Because of that, you're going to see this sort of pullback, which is strange, but they're literally just showing me him like taking steps backwards. I don't know that he's necessarily going to reverse anything right now, but there's definitely a quieting. And you're going to continue to see lawsuits. The professors at Harvard has now created a lawsuit. They're going after Trump for infringement of their First Amendment rights, I think it is. So the courts are going to continue to push back. There's going to continue to be people who are filing lawsuits against him and his administration like every single day of every single week. But the courts are no longer playing with him. By and large, they are saying enough is enough. You are literally ignoring every single rule. You're ignoring Congress. You're overstepping your own powers. You're on and on and on. And the courts are now starting to really push back, and they're not even doing it all that gently. And so we're going to be watching to see what happens, because the administration had something they needed to do by Tuesday or Monday at 5:00, and that didn't happen. And so what's next? Does the administration actually, sorry, I got an eyelash in my eye. Does the administration actually end up being held in contempt of court? What does that look like? As we go through the end of this week and into the beginning of next, you're going to see quicker reactions by the media to the crazy things he says. It's getting to a point, it's almost as if all of the really big, loud protests have, one of the things that they've done is they have empowered people, everyday people, to just start pushing back. And as that's happening, you have the media slowly responding. Certainly, um, center and left wing media that's been on his butt for a while now. But even you're going to start to see that mainstream. I mean, even Fox is freaking out about what's going on with the economy. You can only spin it so far, and it's not even that he's not even. It's everything he promised. He now says, "Well, it can't be done," and oops, but love me anyways because I'm brilliant. So he started to get pushback from a lot of places. His family, that immediate family, has pulled back, in part because he's really volatile. And so when somebody is really volatile, the last thing you want to do is sort of get in their face. And particularly if you're family, because there will be no restraint on the attack that sort of levied. And so even his family has pulled back. The people who are around him right now are the Stephen Millers, are the Pam Bondis, are Marco Rubios, who are just literally willing to crawl after him saying, "Yes, master, whatever you want." It was really pathetic. I saw a bit of a clip from that meeting in the hideous Oval Office with all of the gold. And Marco Rubio literally looked like a little boy sitting at the grown-ups table. Incredibly uncomfortable. Okay. Now, I appreciate that that's what's going on right now. Things are chaotic. Your job is, hold on, please. Sorry, Atlas was being a one canine welcoming party. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. So, what are we doing here? How do you cope with this? How do you handle this? Well, you do the things that you can do. And honestly, this applies whether you live in the United States or Canada or any other place. And you continue to stay involved with what your government is doing and the decisions that they're making on your behalf. For people in the United States, those daily phone calls are impacting. They're having an effect. There was a rally held on Harvard grounds, I think it was over the weekend, where everyday people were saying, "Do not capitulate to this. Don't do it." And Harvard said, "We're not." Right? So it is the power of the little people, I guess, who have nothing left to lose, who are able to start turning the tide. And one of the ways that this is going to stay energized is that we all stay really positive. And so this is a brilliant time to stay positive, right? We're heading into Easter. It is the renewal, the recognition of spring. It is the rebirth. It is grass is turning green, tulips are jumping out of the ground, whatever it is. But it's a remembrance that there's always a new beginning after the cold. I appreciate that those in the Southern Hemisphere, it's reversed, but bear with me. So it's been a really hard, cold winter. Certainly since, January, right? So where you're at is you're going to stay focused. You're going to stay positive. You're going to celebrate the little stuff. You're going to celebrate hearing the birds. You're going to celebrate the grass turning green. You're going to celebrate whatever it is that is significant and important to you. Recognizing that the renewal of the earth itself creates an energy that helps us renew. And that's exactly where we all need to be, because it has been exhausting. And where we're at right now is a place where we get to step back, take a couple of deep breaths, and continue doing the things that we're doing, because everybody doing something little ends up turning into something massive. I think it was something like 35,000 people were at the rally Bernie Sanders did in Los Angeles. 35,000. Amazing. People, and listen, it's not Democrats and independents only. There are Republicans who are getting really, really sick and tired of this and really frightened by the things that are going on. So, deep breath. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the weekend if you are celebrating. And just take the time to allow yourself to recharge, because that's where the greatest strength lies, in every single one of us being strong and recognizing that it really is the little people who can control what is done if they come together. Thank you very, very much for being here again. Thank you so much for your support. It means a great deal. Don't forget, if you're interested in that article, I am going to put it in the information box below. It's fascinating. And if you don't know anything about the bond market and how it works and why all of a sudden, Trump backpedaled so fast, the article will clarify all of that for you. And again, thank you, Joyce, for sending that to me, because super, super helpful and informative. Alrighty. Everybody have a good weekend. I will see you next week. Until then, take care and be well. Bye for now.